Hey, what's up? Episode 1, let's do this. Got a fun show today. A little bit later, I'm going to be joined by Tom Z of Lakers Exceptionalism to discuss uniform leaks, front office moves, and the state of the big man in the NBA today. At the end of the episode, I'll do Knicks picks for a few of next Sunday's games, but first, because I haven't had a chance to, I want to talk about the bubble and the completion of the 2019-2020 season. First, I want to commend Adam Silver, the players, the owners, the team staffs, the media personnel, as well as all the friends and family members of those involved. Over 6,000 people were in this bubble and they had 0 cases of the coronavirus. So my hat's off to the NBA and the way they put this all together. Also, the social justice messaging and messaging with voting was incredible. I hope that it's something that they do from here on out. I'm going to touch on it a little bit later on here, but it was awesome to see, especially all the videos that they put together with different people singing the national anthem and seeing what each team did to protest peacefully and bring light to the injustices that we're having here in the States. The second thing I want to say is congratulations to the Los Angeles Lakers on winning their 17th championship. Jeannie Buss is the first female owner to win a championship in the NBA. LeBron got his 4th ring. I would argue that his defense in this playoff run specifically was as close to the 2012-2013 LeBron we've seen since that time. He was locked in and clearly on a mission here in the bubble. Davis Ex Machina got his first ring along with Dwight, and Vogel got a ring. I cannot believe it, but I'm so happy for him. I really liked those Indiana teams of the early 2010s there, and I'm happy to see that he finally got a ring and got to coach a really talented team, and we got to see what he could do with it. The last thing I want to say here is this is probably the most likable LeBron team of all time. Maybe the 17 Cavs, you could argue, were more likable, but in my opinion, this cast of characters and the way that they won, it was just so enjoyable to watch. And it was, watching somebody at the peak of their powers. LeBron's mental game is at an all-time high and his body still hasn't broken down. And so we're really seeing something special, something that you probably won't see again in this capacity. Somebody in their 17th year playing the minutes and having the influence on the game that he does is really uncomparable. And I think that's where a lot of the LeBron versus Jordan argument starts from the LeBron side, is that LeBron's accomplishments are really starting to eclipse what Jordan did. And it's really impressive, and I'm just grateful that I get to watch it. Some other players in the bubble, I really had some dramatic opinion changes on, so I wanted to talk about them here. I wrote down a few of them. Kawhi Leonard, I had a really high opinion of him going into this season off of the Raptors championship and from his Spurs days, and I made the mistake of not considering the locker room and the leadership aspect of being the best player on a championship team. And Kawhi Leonard clearly wasn't able to lead this team to a championship. And I think he was missing somebody like a Kyle Lowry who could really hold everybody accountable and be the leader of the team, at least emotionally, to spark runs or to call out different defensive sets. Whatever needed to be done, Kyle Lowry was willing to do it. And Kawhi was clearly lacking that this year. So I assume that Kawhi is going to put in some work on that in the offseason and really look over what happened. But it's tough to say because it looks like the Clippers are making a bunch of moves which look like, in a way, excuses for why they didn't win, when really they had a talented team with a good coach and they really should have performed better in the playoffs. Before those playoffs started, though, we had Devin Booker and the Phoenix Suns going 8-0, and I was loving it. One of my really good friends is a Phoenix fan, and so I follow them a little bit closer than some other teams, especially also regionally here in Southern California. But man, it was it was fun to watch his coming out party. I am excited to see what he's going to do next year. I think that he's going to be an early MVP candidate. He'll be one of those popular off the radar picks that people will start throwing out there, especially if he starts averaging upwards of 26, 27 points and they're winning games. I think that he'll have a really strong argument at the narrative, and just kind of the way that MVP's gone, it's almost like the newcomer who fully blossoms into a true all-star seems to be the MVP pick more than who is the best player in the league. Also, he's running with DeAndre Ayton, who can hopefully get a full season in next year. He was suspended last year, 25 games for taking some sort of substance. But I think in this 2020 NBA, where you're going to need a big man who can be a presence offensively and defensively, not only as a rim runner, but as a pick setter and as somebody who can create shots for others. And I'm really interested to see where DeAndre Ayton's game is coming into next year, because he really does have the potential to be a nuisance for people like Joker and AD and Rudy Gobert. And I think he could be right in that mix with all of them. He just needs to keep putting in the work. Jamal Murray, we all watched it. There's not a lot more to say about, as J.E. Skeets would say, Kitchener's finest. I'd say he has the highest ceiling and floor of anybody coming out of the bubble. You could tell me that he never makes an all-star game from here on out, and I would believe you. But also, if he makes the next 10, I wouldn't be shocked either. I think that playing on the same court and that consistency seemed to benefit him a lot, and also having that space on the baseline to land also allowed him to really streak at the basket quickly, and maybe that helped his game. But it's really exciting to see a team like Denver with a couple young stars putting stuff together and making playoff runs and getting experience, because, you know, this is like where the Warriors were before they were the Warriors. They had to lose some playoff series and take their licks and come back stronger for it. And I think that Denver's clearly not a title favorite, but a title contender next year, as long as they can stay healthy. In the other conference, Jason Tatum, 12-time Tatum, he disappointed me, and I think he can play better. It just seems like sometimes he's trying to decide what he wants to do instead of just reacting to what the defense is doing or dictating specifically to the defense to create a disadvantage for them. He just seems hesitant sometimes, or his shot selection just seems off. And he clearly has the skills. That's what people see when they call him 12-time Tatum. I think that he needs to sit down in the film room and make his decision-making quicker when he's on the court, so it's more of a reaction as opposed to a fully thought-through decision. But the Celtics are going to be there. They're going to be one of the teams at the end of the season that's a true contender, so he'll have another opportunity at it. And a team that almost put it all together, they got a player, Duncan Robinson. He's the last player I want to touch on here. This might be a hot take, but I think that Duncan Robinson can be everything that Clay is for the Warriors for the Heat. I think his defense is really underrated, and so is his size and strength. I think that positionally he plays really good, smart defense. And obviously offensively he's lethal, and that's not going to diminish as he gains more experience in playing in more high-level games more consistently. He's only going to become a better shooter. And I think that that's going to be a big piece for the Heat for the next couple years if they really want to make a run at the title here, because he showed he's not going to back down from anybody, and he has all the skills that you would want in a small forward in the game today. The level of play in the bubble was exceptional. It exceeded my expectations personally, but the no travel, the consistent rest, playing on the same court, maybe not having the distraction of fans there, contributed to this higher level of play. I think most importantly, and I talked about it a little bit earlier, is the space around the court. I think that these athletes are so fast, strong, and they're making these split-second decisions that in this environment, with the way that the court was set up at the bubble, it allowed the players to drive at the basket harder, dive out of bounds with less fear, and it ultimately create a faster, more physical, but better overall game. And it was so much fun to watch. And I know those seats are money makers for these teams, but if they could find a way to just give the players a little bit more room in a real arena, I think that would greatly increase the level of play and also keep the players healthy, which is most important. You want these players on the court. There are other unique quirks that I really enjoyed with the bubble. A weekend I was totally in on the fake crowd. The rail cam was incredible. The virtual fans were fun because you could get anybody anywhere into the arena theoretically. We had appearances from celebrities all the way to former President Barack Obama. It was so much fun during stops and play to search the crowd and to look and see who they're hiding in there during that particular game. I really enjoyed the 4 games a day, very reminiscent of college basketball's March Madness, where you wake up and go to sleep and all you've done all day is watch basketball. The play-in and the race for those spots clearly worked. And the other weird quirk that I wanted to touch on that I don't think a lot of people are talking about is that it was the majority of all the teams, players, coaches, all in the same place. And I think in the future with a mid-season tournament, it could create the same experience where at least once a season, all the players, coaches, owners, everybody is in the same place for a certain period of time, and they can get a lot done with social justice, voting, future collective bargaining agreements. It would just be a good space for conversations to happen. There'd probably be some level of tampering happening, but overall, I think it would help bring everybody in the NBA world on the same page consistently year after year. And then we could also have this exciting mid-season tournament where there's another trophy to win in a season other than the LOB, which is something that I think Adam Silver has been pushing for the past couple of years, and I'm all for. All in all, I loved the bubble ball experience. Like I said earlier, it had exceeded all of my expectations. One other thing here, free agency is probably going to start about the same time this episode goes up, and the draft is in a couple of days. So over the next couple of weeks, as players begin to sign and trades start to happen, I'll talk more in depth about that and what I think teams need to do for the upcoming season. But for today, no free agency speculation. Just want to talk about the bubble and my thoughts on that. Okay. Up next, I have Tom Z joining me, but first, a word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by CBD Brands Direct. CBD Brands Direct is an online retailer for a wide variety of CBD brands and products. They are your one-stop shop for everything CBD. From topicals to edibles to ingestibles, they've got you covered. Caliper CBD makes a dissolvable powder that provides a precise 20 milligram dose of CBD in each packet. The powder is flavorless, sugar-free, THC-free, and it dissolves into any food or beverage. Caliper CBD has a 450% higher bioavailability than standard CBD oils. That means you absorb 4.5 times more CBD into your body and get the full power results you deserve. It contains no calories and is made with non-GMO ingredients. It is vegan and gluten-free. All products from CBD Brands Direct ship to the continental United States. You must be 18 or older to order. Be sure to check your specific state's CBD regulations. Visit cbdbrandsdirect.com. That's cbdbrandsdirect.com to order. And use the offer code Begonia FM, all one word, at checkout to get 20% off your order. Make sure to use that code Begonia FM to let them know you came from us. Thanks to CBD Brands Direct for sponsoring this episode and all of Begonia FM. Okay, joining me now on the line, he's a director, writer, producer, one half of the Lakers Exceptionalism podcast, and a triple threat on the basketball court. Tom Z, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well after that amazing intro. I forget it's been so long since we've actually hooped together that I've hooped with other humans before and they know what my game is like. I feel seen.
You are dangerous behind the 3-point line and in the lane. With the basketball in your hand, you're always a threat.
I appreciate that. I love it. I love playing basketball. You got some good hands for yourself too, man. You're a good roll man. You know when to roll, when to pop. You got some skills of your own.
Yeah, I'm here to set screens, get guys open, finish plays, just, whatever the team needs, I'm here for.
Classic team player.
Today we're going to talk about non-player moves that we think will have a big impact over the next year or the next 5 years. We're going to talk about AD, Joker, and Embiid's impact on player personnel over the next few years. We're going to save all of our free agency talk for when Tom comes on next time. But to begin here, we're going to talk uniform leaks. We've had a lot of leaks and confirmations over the past few weeks, and it's something that Tom and I are pretty passionate about, so we thought we'd go through them here and share our thoughts. Tom, you kind of made a fun little collection of lists here, so I'm going to let you go through your lists, and then I'll give my top 3, bottom 3, and then we'll try to predict what teams are going to do that we haven't seen, but give us your lists here.
All right, man. So I try to be positive these days in these days of growing uncertainty. So I'm going to start with the top 3 grew on me jerseys, ones that I maybe saw the first time, wasn't so in on, and then, the more I see them, the more I like them. And my number 1 is the Jean-Michel Basquiat Brooklyn Nets jersey.
Great pronunciation.
I try. Look, he's a really cool artist. I do actually really like his work. He did a collaboration with the Lakers recently that was pretty fun. I'm going to point out a little detail that I just noticed maybe a couple days ago that really changed how I saw this jersey. So you're looking at the jersey, right? The Nets part. There's like a bracket on one end and a curved line on the left end. So, but what I realized, and considering this is from an artist who was born in Brooklyn, the right bracket is the backboard, the left curve is the rim, and the word Nets is the net.
Brain exploding.
Right?
Yeah. Okay, I thought you were going to talk about the yellow name popping on the back that changed your mind.
That looks good as well, but kind of everything coming together, and then, yeah, we only saw the front part of the jersey at first. It looked kind of busy. It kind of looked like someone's, like 8th grade, notebook in science class.
Yeah,
doodles.
the primary colors being splashed on top of the Brooklyn black and white, yeah, definitely gave it that elementary type of look. Plus the hand-drawn aesthetic of it.
Yes.
I did not put 2 and 2 together there, that is the net. I'm with you. That's growing on me as well.
There's still some kind of funky. I don't love the zigzaggy kind of underlay pattern beneath it. There's kind of this wavy texture on the jersey that I could live without. Makes it a little too busy to me. But overall, the Nets the last few years with their, their Biggie jerseys, their black and white, plus the multicoloral kind of format is just really clean.
Totally agree. And this is way better than the other jersey that they leaked this offseason, in my opinion. That 90s throwback, this one is far superior.
Yes. So that was my number 1, kind of grew on me with time. And I could totally be off the mark with that Nets, kind of artistic reading there, but I think that's what he was going for, and to me that's really cool.
Art is really just up to interpretation. So
I'm right then, because I decide I'm right. I like that. I like that. We're gonna go with that. Following up on that, you had put some information about the Trailblazers Oregon jerseys in our doc that I wasn't aware of. Firstly, that the Oregon border is the zigzag along the side of the jerseys. I wasn't aware of that specific detail. The Oregon font is the same as the famous Oregon sign. I'm taking all your credit for this research, Nick. I just want the listeners to know I'm riding your wave here. But all those kind of put together, and I looked at it again. It's clean. It's elegant. It grew on me more than the brownish turd of a jersey I thought it was at first.
I'm in the same boat. My initial reaction was, oh, what? The Blazers are usually so good. They rarely miss on a uniform. But this one, it grew on me as well. And yeah, I like those little details of the border. And I like that they're shouting out Oregon because they really don't have a lot of professional sports teams in general, the whole state. And so for the state getting a little bit of a shout out on the uniforms, I'm for it.
100%. Yeah, to your point, all of Portland's jerseys are so classic. They keep to their historical themes while kind of changing a little bit enough to make it fresh and clean. And this is a severe departure from all of that, which gave us a little culture shock, I think. But once you kind of, so I think also once you saw the rest of the jerseys come out, you're like, okay, that one's not that bad.
Yeah, it put it in perspective.
For real, though. So that's a cool jersey. The other one, Nick, that I was lukewarm on was the Lakers, actually. You know, that's my team. I love my Lakers.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe I saw, like, those knockoff jerseys that are, like, the numbers are too small proportionally to what they actually are. Because when I saw the full release of this, it wasn't quite as proportional as you'd expect. And then you saw the legit release, and it's got kind of like a silver kind of, you know, number shade behind it. Like the number's kind of silver, and there's like a blue kind of like shadow to it that I like. So
yeah, the three-dimensionality of the number.
And I know 100% that, you know, last year when Nipsey Hussle passed, there was a big push on Twitter from Lakers fans to get his Crenshaw jersey to become a Lakers alt. And if you're not familiar, it's more or less the blue on blue MPLS throwbacks that you'd see Jerry West or Elgin Baylor in. But instead of Lakers, it says Crenshaw in cursive. And to me, this is them kind of trying to get back to that feeling that so many of us on Twitter wanted, but, you know, avoiding the rights of not being able to get the actual Crenshaw jersey.
Oh, well, that makes sense to me. And I like that story behind it. I mean, we both live here in Los Angeles, so we're both well aware, but LA loves LA.
Yes.
You know, and this city is very loyal to the people, and I like that aesthetic that they're trying to go back to that. I didn't know that Nipsey Hussle portion of the story, but both of those, both the white and the blue they're clean, and the Lakers have a nice general aesthetic that they can build off of, kind of similar to the Portland Trail Blazers in a way. And I mean, Lakers whites always look good. We've talked about it. Those Sunday whites are beautiful. So if I'm getting a second Lakers white uniform, I'm all in.
I do feel like although the Lakers have great base jerseys, that their city jerseys have been pretty bad lately outside of the Mamba jerseys from a few years ago. Like the Shaq jerseys this year, I'm not it. Like those god-awful purple pajama pinstripe BS from last year, like just like those on the hottest of garbage fires. But I also want to point out that they only really, this is my conspiracy theory, okay? They only put out blue jerseys so that all the media will stop talking about how the Minneapolis titles don't count. This is them embracing the Minnesota in their roots.
Clever move. Now they just need to retire Mikan's number, right?
I guess. Maybe
somebody does. Them or the Timberwolves. That man's number should be in a rafter.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know if he cares. He's dead, but, you know, respect. George Mikan was the first NBA superstar.
When I say the Mikan drill, you know what I'm talking about. If you're that influential in the game, you got to be in the rafters. He's a champion, Hall of Famer. An argument for another day. The jersey I had for your grew on me category was the Chicago theater aesthetic uniforms. It was kind of one of those shocks as well that we talked about, like with Portland, but it grew on me, and I've been to that Chicago theater there. I saw Hamilton there in 16, so sure, let's do it. Gold and black always looks clean too. So, well, I say that, but Toronto found a way to jack that up this year. But
that's true. I agree with you on the Chicago note, though. I think the gold is really clean, and it's like the font works really well, not just on the Chicago, but on the names as well. Yeah, that one grew on me as well, even though it's kind of a weird cultural connection to the city of Chicago. That'd be like, Philadelphia coming out with Rocky jerseys, which I don't think anyone would be mad at. But it's like cultural connection to a city versus, actual city like Liberty Bell or, you know what I mean?
Well, the Chicago Theater does use that font downtown, and theater and performance is very big in Chicago, like with Second City and comedy performances. It's definitely one of the, capitals of live performance in the United States. So I think they are leaning a little bit into that as well.
No, you're right. I'm just impressed at how well, zooming in so much to a cultural niche of a particular city works, because that font is iconic, and you can't just do that with Rocky or something like that. You know what I mean? It works even though it's very culturally niche. It still is a part of their identity, unlike the god-awful boathouses on Philly's New Jersey.
But speaking of Rocky and the Sixers, didn't they do those gray uniforms as a Rocky thing, like to match his gray sweatsuit?
Oh, well, see, that's a level of connection I hadn't considered before. Are you talking about the ones with the stars?
Going around the number, yeah,
right.
In a circle.
I guess that makes sense. There's more of a Rocky nod than an overt Rocky, which is what the Chicago kind of font is doing.
Totally. And I think a little bit of where I was coming from as well is I loved their Chicago flag aesthetic that they had built over the past couple years. That's such a cool flag, specifically that with those iconic stars, that why wouldn't you continue to use that design as your city edition? That's your city flag, and it looks really good. But I digress. Yeah. What's your next list?
So next we got to get to, I mentioned Philly. The top 3, what are you doing jerseys? And this was hard for me to put it at just 3, so I have a tie at 2. But going back to Philly, man, I did a little digging, and I heard that Ben Simmons actually had a big part in designing this jersey. It missed the shot.
He misses. Yeah.
He missed the shot. Low-hanging fruit. It's too easy. But it's so Ben Simmons has got his hands on this, and apparently their starting point was, we want a black jersey. Okay, You want a black jersey. Some people love black jerseys. I'm fine with them. Sometimes they're necessary, sometimes they're not, right?
Every team loves black uniforms. I've pointed this out in the playoffs. I pointed out in the middle of the playoffs, I was like, every team is wearing a black uniform. And I think we found one game. Right. It was with Denver and the Lakers, who traditionally don't wear black at all, where there wasn't a black uniform involved. Every team wants a black uniform.
I remember texting you about this in the playoffs. You're like, there's been 9 straight games with a black uniform.
Yeah, and it's always the team that's down 0-2. They're like, oh, we're wearing black because we're taking this serious. I think it all started with LeBron.
With LeBron's Cavs, yeah.
Yeah, with those T-shirt uniforms. But
for sure. But, furthermore, this jersey is just all over the place. I don't know what's going on with the font. The boathouses look like those old, crappy Etch-a-Sketches. You get when you're little.
Yeah.
Those Night Brights, I guess is what they are, not Etch-a-Sketch. The Night Bright. It's the Night Bright jersey.
Perfect. I think that they should rebrand it. It might sell better.
Put some Christmas lights on that. That would actually be cool, aesthetically.
Ooh, Christmas Day uniforms?
Yeah, put some Christmas lights on it.
Perfect. And they made this big deal that they were going to announce it with AI wearing the uniform too. And I hear that it's a black uniform. I'm so excited that those black cutoffs are going to come back. We've had the T-shirt jersey recently. Let's bring back the 2000s cutoff jersey. It's time. And then they came out with this boathouse. Oh, super disappointing. And they've been pretty good on their uniforms recently.
Yeah, they have. No, and that's what's so disappointing to me, and this is why it's the what are you doing category. Because jerseys, if you do them well, they're like Portland. They're clean, they're familiar, but new, and thematically connected to the city you're in.
Absolutely.
And there's something here. Philly, of all towns, really can pull off the red, white, and blue. And always has pulled it off very well, in my opinion. And a lot of teams have that color scheme and don't use it very well. But there with the Fila, I love those Fila jerseys and the cursive.
And it's that parchment, almost egg white colored uniform.
Right. So to
Those
see
are
them
nice.
just depart from all of that entirely to, maybe give your star a chance to, grow his brand and this or that. It's like, I understand it, and they just missed the mark here. Although I think Philly's had, for the most part, so far, a pretty damn good offseason.
I cannot argue that. Yeah, I'm a big Morey fan, so they brought him in. I think that's going to change their franchise for sure. We're actually going to talk about some front office moves later on, but what else do you got here on your what are you doing? What's your tie?
So my tie, I couldn't pick one because these 4 teams have to be here, and I had to keep it to like top 3 for thematic. So New York and Detroit, man, and these fall into the same like just lack of like turning your homework in like the minute it's due, doing it on the way to class, scribbling down notes. So first of all, let's go to New York, okay? Another team who's like, please give us black jerseys. Okay, you want a black jersey, whatever. They've got the orange to blue gradient on stripe on the sides, which, okay, that's not the most important thing.
Gradient is never good. Like those new Atlanta Falcons uniforms are awful. It looks like a college program.
Yeah, it's like clip art, word pop art, style. And the thing that really bothers me, Nick, this is, I don't know if you feel the same, but we're No Ducks fans. We listen. They talk about what city, the city that never sleeps. They're missing a few words there. City never sleeps. That's kind of weird. Other than that, the New York Knicks and the City Never Sleeps slogan are like tilted wrong. Like they're not they're not top bottom, which fine. You don't want to be cool, symmetrical top bottom New York Knicks City Never Sleeps, fine. But it's like the New York Knicks is like almost upside down.
It's like a never-ending circle, like time.
Look, like their treadmill to nowhere.
Precisely. Yeah, no, these look like Boise State got to get an extra uniform. The slogan is bad, and it's, such a fall from grace because the Knicks uniforms are iconic.
Yes.
And they have some pretty good throwbacks to dig into as well. But yeah, they also just have an incredibly cool city. Like we've talked about, some of these other cities just grab little pieces of their culture. Mm-hmm. You're New York City.
Yes.
Figure it out. Like even the firefighter ones are cool because the New York Fire Department,
Sure. It's gonna be a no for me, dog.
It's bad. What about the Detroit uniforms?
The Detroit one is also just like, do we need... Okay, so in case you weren't aware, Motor City is Detroit, Michigan, because we put Detroit, Michigan underneath it. It's like explaining the joke on your jersey. Why? What are we... Motor City. Yeah, we know. That's your slogan. Motor City. Buzz City. Rip City. We get it. We know you're Motor City. You don't have to like Detroit, Michigan. Like, we know where you are. I know that you're back in Detroit now, not in Auburn Hills or whatever. But
yeah, they're so happy to be in Detroit.
Yeah. I just don't get it, Nick. And then, like, the proportions are too small. Like, the jerseys or the numbers kind of a weird... I don't know. What is there anything good about that jersey?
Not that I can tell. It's like a discount version of the Mile High uniforms from last year, or they just took like the Indiana Pacers template and just color changed a couple things. I mean, Detroit's uniforms have been some of the worst, though, over the last 5 years, so I don't expect anything out of them.
Yeah. You're
like
right.
They had those tread mark ones where there was just those two vertical stripes going up the front with that hideous gray. They've been off the mark for years. I think they should bring back those teal Grant Hill uniforms and lean into that like ugly 90s aesthetic that the Raptors and Grizzlies did last year. Because that was cool seeing those ugly... I don't mean to call them ugly Raptors uniforms, but at the time they were ugly. They're cool now because of their gaudiness. But Pistons should lean hard into that or go back to just the very simple 80s Isaiah Thomas, just Pistons, red and blue, clean aesthetic. But what they're doing now is not working.
another team trying to use the red, white, and blue aesthetic, and it just kind of blends together after a while, you know. And I really think that colorway is pretty limiting. You can do clean stuff with it, and I think the white jerseys with like a blue trim and a red number, like all that is very easy to make look good. But as far as looking creative and being creative and coming out with something like this is just not it. I mean, this literally looks like somebody threw it together in the last day.
Yeah, no, it's bad. And it's a V-neck, too. So it's like, well, come on. Yeah. At least give them a different neck or something. Right. Give me something to... What is different about this than their normal blue Pistons uniform?
Right. Exactly. There's nothing. It's literally their home jersey with, like...
explaining what their city does and where it is. They should have just put the latitude and longitude.
That's right. I mean, honestly, that might actually be cooler. Like, on like the bottom corner of a jersey, you know, just like, I don't know. That they're bad. The other red, white, and gray team is the Wizards to me. And this jersey, first of all, 1000% violates U.S. flag code. Second,
it's pretty tone deaf.
Yeah. Second, I want to point out, and I've had this issue for a long time, Nick. Their DC logo has a hand at the top, you know, to celebrate all those jump balls that they're winning.
Right. It's like an homage to the Bullets. The two L's were two hands jumping for a ball.
But, like, why is jump balls... Like, I get that, you know, you're the Heat. Let's put a ball going through the rim and the net goes on fire. Cool. Okay. Awesome. What? About your name is still the Wizards, and after Jordan, they, you know, pivoted away from like the wizardry kind of themes that they had.
Yeah, they leaned much more into the DC aspect, throwing the Washington monument into the logo and embracing the red, white, and blue.
But your team name's the Wizards. Like, at some point, you got to do something there, right? Like, and this is just so to explain the jersey, it's this giant, like, you know, like gross puke gray that's just like I don't even, it's just the worst gray ever. It looks terrible, and then the sides have these, you know, foisted on American flag segments. So it's gray with red, white, and blue. I don't understand the thought process.
And blue lettering on the gray uniform with no trim to pop. Yeah, you're just shaking your head right now, and that's the exact same thing that
I have no other
That's
words.
The same thing that I'm feeling. I mean, the gray is maybe like a Georgetown Hoyas gray in Georgetown, DC, something there.
Fair.
But I mean, I'm really scraping for pennies at this point. It's awful. And this is Nike. Like, they employ a lot of people. A lot of people have to be like, this is okay. And it's not okay.
You think they were like, how do we get John Wall out of Washington? Like, we know John Wall likes fashion. You're going to make him play 41 games in these, and he'll promptly leave. Anyway, that's my three, like bottom tier of jerseys that I feel like came out. But were there any other ones that you want to throw into, like, the bottom tier of just, like, what are you doing?
Well, I had the Wizards in my what are you doing as well. This is actually probably a good chance. I'll just give my bottom three right now. My first of the bottom three is the Sacktown uniforms. These are my Kings, and these are atrocious. It's a weird color scheme. It kind of looks like a Thunder alternate. The only redeeming thing that could happen from this uniform would be as if Milwaukee keeps their Cream City uniforms and we get a Sacktown versus Cream City matchup. But other than that, these are hot garbage. My second on the bottom three is the Raps black and gold. They found a way to make black and gold and the Raptors 90 aesthetic look bad. It's like, you're talking about Magic and Wizards. That's a magic trick right there. I don't know how they pulled it off, but they're bad. And they had such a cool aesthetic going, and they just won the championship. We're going to talk about that in the new themes, but Raptors, poor choices are being made. And then my other on the bottom three is the Boathouse uniforms.
The Boathouse.
Those are bad. But what's your other list that you put together here?
So the other one that is kind of like the list made itself, really, because we've seen a couple times over the last few years these jerseys that come out that just look like the generic stuff you buy at a gas station. You know, the LA that's purple and gold but not officially licensed. You know, they just look like something that, like, you forgot to buy your kid a gift for his birthday and you're getting gas and, you know, here's a Los Angeles fake Lakers jersey.
It's like at Steinmart or TJ Maxx.
Yes, right. That's a good one too. Right. And number one in this category to me is the god-awful, is this dress gold or blue Dallas Mavericks jersey. Because it has that gold feel, if you remember that dress meme that was going around, or is this dress white and gold, or is this dress blue? It has that kind of tint to it, and I don't know if do these jerseys change under lights? Like, that would be cool, first of all.
Wow. Yeah, are they white and gold or are they blue and black? It's for you to decide.
And listen, both are, well, no, I don't know. That's another thing. Why the gold? Where does the gold come from?
Yeah, you definitely did not just win the championship. The Lakers, if they came out with a gold aesthetic one, fair.
That's
Y'all
also,
just got the LOB.
That's also part of their jersey. They're purple and gold. That's their color. But I'm just like, gold. Mavericks are that. They introduced that kind of neon green, right? A couple years ago. They've been using that for trim and gradients, and those last year's jerseys we're talking, like, weren't as awful as we thought. But
yeah, they looked nice on the court.
Yeah. The gold, it's also part of what are you doing here? Because, again, thematically, what does this say about Dallas? How does this perpetuate your culture of the city, of the team? It really does just look like, you know, like, yo, I heard Luka likes gold, you guys.
Yeah, like, man, Luka really liked those jerseys that Trae Young was wearing last year for Atlanta. Why don't we just do that, but put Dallas on it?
Yeah, they do look like that. Right. And the last, or the second one to me, is the Clippers. And they're basically returning their San Andreas jerseys. Yes, repeat offenders from last year. And I saw this jersey get so much love that, you know, kind of old English, like San Andreas font, Los Angeles, the white jerseys. It was fine. I didn't think they were bad, but I didn't think they blew my socks off or anything.
No, every idea behind this uniform is awesome. Like, if, you know, you're in the meeting and you're drawing it all up on the whiteboard and you're trying to decide what all aesthetics are going to be blended into this uniform, but then it's just like they just copy pasted everything on to get a general idea and then accidentally sent that off. Like, the font doesn't really look like it organically fits on the uniform. I think that's where you're getting some of your gas station, you know, aesthetic from, is like the aspect ratio, and then not stylizing the numbers with that lettering, keeping your numbers from your other uniforms with your NBA Live font. It's a terrible mismatch of bad choices with good intentions. Right.
And they're trying to, like, you know, like, ram in there the red and blue with the armhole, like, linings that it's missing some. It just kind of feels incomplete to me. I agree with you that you mention it. Like, the details on the fringes are just exactly like the other jerseys, and what's different about this one isn't special enough to scream, you know, awesome city jersey. And it might look better with the court, like with the black, than the white. I don't see it though.
That's a possibility. You know, we needed more black uniforms, so good thing that the Clippers got another one. They've also been driving this whole aesthetic of, like, we're the blue collar South Side LA team. You know, Lakers are the fancy pants, and I think they're trying to keep digging into that, but it's not working. Right. I mean, if you go anywhere in this city, it's Clippers fan is as rare as finding a fresh piece of grass, you know. It's concrete and Lakers fans.
Well said. My final gas station special here is the Oakland We Believe inspired Warriors jersey. Now, if you haven't seen this is a throwback to like the dark navy blues and the oranges and the burnt oranges from the We Believe like Baron Davis team, right? Mm-hmm. So it's that aesthetic with Oakland written across the front. And for me, it's not as bad or as gas station-y as the other ones, but it's still got it's got like cool neighborhood gas station vibes to me. Like this is like the upscale neighborhood where like people pump the gas for you.
Sure. You're like at a Buc-ee's or something like that.
Sure. Yeah.
People in the Midwest know what I'm talking about. That or Quick Trip. Shout out to you in the Midwest. I'd put these on its own separate list, the disrespectful as fuck list.
Yes.
And it's just them on their own right now. They just left Oakland. And now they're putting Oakland on the uniform? Light years ahead, right?
Yeah, it's tough. And that team had such a fun, I was talking to my friend about this, that Oracle had such a fun vibe to it. Even before they got good.
Totally.
Just natural, real people, real fans coming from the Bay, especially Oakland, and now they're in the fancy part of town, like down by the wharf. Like it's a nightmare to go to games there apparently because parking is just impossible.
It's going to go down as a sports curse.
Yeah.
Mark my words.
I hope so.
It will go down as like the curse of Oakland or something of that nature. Like the Warriors aren't going to win again now that they've moved. And that they moved the team in the middle of a dominant run is going to be looked back at for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and they feel like the San Francisco kind of yuppies team now, where before they were like the team of the people. And this jersey tries to go back to that, but they have gone so much past that it's like, dude, just do another Chinese New Year jersey and make your money in China and go home.
Spoken like a true Lakers fan.
Well, I'm not mad.
The only gas station special I have to add is the Pels. I don't know what's going on there. That looks like some clip art. I don't understand what the blue stripe is going to be when it's tucked into the uniform. Maybe the shorts are blue, or maybe we just don't ever see that blue stripe.
We've seen the shorts, by the way. I don't know if I sent this to you, but the shorts are basically like 3/4 white with a blue stripe at the very bottom.
Oh, that's so weird.
So it'd go like red, white, a little bit of blue, more white, a little bit more blue.
And the blue in the middle is depending on if it's like Rip Hamilton tucking his uniform or Damian Lillard, who Dame likes that tight jersey.
Someone was like, how do we put literally a French flag on a jersey and do nothing else?
Oh, Pelicans. Well, they don't have a lot else going on good there. So
yeah.
At least they're being talked about.
I mean, I don't know if you want to just kind of run through some of the other ones we haven't talked about that kind of fall in the, didn't fall into some of our categories, but, Atlanta did an entire rebrand. We'll get to these categories soon, but what did you think about their MLK City jerseys? Because I thought they looked pretty cool.
I totally agree. It's, that black and gold aesthetic that I'm fond of. And that actually, I have them in my top 3. I have the Spurs Fiesta uniforms.
Yes.
So clean.
So
it
clean.
It kind of a little bit reminds me of the Trailblazers with that, slanting horizontal stripes going across the front. And then Dallas with their 90s greens with the...
Like the Steve Nash jerseys?
Yeah, like early Steve Nash uniforms. I want them to bring back that aesthetic completely. Like get rid of that blue, black, and white horse head and bring back the M with the hat on it. I just think that that's cooler, and bringing green in as a nice cutting color against the blue and white always looks good, in my opinion. It's not used by a bunch of teams.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we talked about their other new uniform and their uniforms from the past few years, so it's a huge improvement. So maybe that's how it got into my top 3. My expectations were so low for the Mavs that when I saw this, I was like, well, I like it. Okay.
No, totally. I think everything you said there was spot on. The Spurs Fiesta one feels almost, I was going to say Portland too, and it also feels kind of like rainbowy, right? With the pastels and something cool about the, again, the black and white with a multicolor pattern on it somewhere. There's a great, because dude, the Spurs in my opinion, would have been top 3 in worst city jerseys before this year. You remember when they did the camo jersey?
They do them every year because of Pop.
I get it. Respect, I mean, I'm not going to.
But it's not very creative.
It's not. It doesn't look good. I think you could do those in a more creative way,
Totally.
So for years, people have been clamoring for Fiesta to come back, and, credit to them, those came back. Did you have a chance to see the 2 different Miami Vice jerseys? And did you have any particular, did they hit it out of the park again on both of them, you think?
Yes, just because it is the Miami Vice colors. I don't think that you can't hit it out of the park with that, but I definitely liked the one with the 3D letters a lot more than the gradient one.
Right.
The gradient one, it looks cool, but it kind of looks like those sports cars that get that weird paint job that looks different in different lights. Yeah. But that aesthetic with the Vice is arguably the coolest aesthetic going on in the NBA currently. Yeah. What do you think about them?
I tend to agree. I wonder if the gradient on it's a little too strong, because it's a gradient from blue to pink, and the blue and pink colors they have is really good. It's just the gradient's too fast. I don't know. I want more middle ground where they come together and kind of form this purplish. That might be something I'd lean toward. But the white ones with the gradient lettering are clean AF. I really like those.
As do I. I'm excited to see them on the court as well, because they always do a cool court design with those uniforms. And same with the court design for the Spurs. I'm interested to see what that looks like if they do the, Fiesta aesthetic throughout, with the warm-ups in the court.
And the Hornets, too, with the mint jersey. I liked those.
I know we're trying to keep it positive here. I did not like the Hornets' little rebrand here. They've been rebranding, I feel like, every year since they changed from the Bobcats.
Yeah.
They're not bad. I love the Jordan logo on all of them. That's really cool. But I don't feel like they're different enough to warrant a whole new rebrand and slate of uniforms. But if they keep these for a while, then I think I'll be okay with it. I think I'm just sick of all the change.
I get that. They added some gold kind of pinstriping to a couple of them, and some gold kind of trim that I think helps that teal pop. They also kind of slightly brighten the teal, I think, so it's a little more mint chocolate chip color than, teal. So, I mean, they're working toward a culture of something that makes sense, so I'll give them credit there. But, I mean, they're not the only team to rebrand. We've got a few nominees here if we want to get into kind of the new developments of the jerseys,
let's get into it.
So we have, first of all, Orlando's completely out of left field, nowhere in their history, shift to this electric orange, this creamsicle Tampa Bay orange.
Last year they had the orange aesthetic as well with the ORL.
But that was new as well, is my point, is that's not anywhere from their past.
No, you're completely right. I love it. And I'm usually not big on orange, specifically as a color, but bring on the orange. These are cool, and they really embody Florida. Miami does such a good job about feeling so Miami.
Yeah.
That I feel like Orlando should embrace, the orange and the beach fun aesthetic. What do you think about them?
That's a great point. I hadn't considered kind of them embracing the Florida kind of vibes, because you're right. The pinstripes that they're kind of known for are classic, but they're a little more northern East Coast. You think of the Yankees, the Red Sox, other teams that use pinstripes, a little more, northeastern, I think. But what's cool about these is the pinstripes kind of flare up as you go. So the top half of the jersey almost is rising sunish with that orange.
Yeah, totally. And they threw the star in on the front, which is a nice little touch. They kept their font on the orange ones from last season. It was almost like a space age font on there. And it really looked out of left field, but those were clean as well. And I don't know if I absolutely love these uniforms overall. Yeah. I could change some things if I'm thinking about it, but the orange aesthetic that they're going towards, full steam ahead, please. More orange all the time.
No, totally. Yeah, I'm fully on board with it as well. So we are both thumbs up on that one. What about the Chicago's use of, mentioned it before, the classical musicals font, kind of using culture in a different way to embrace a city than just like, oh, this is our landmark. Oh, this is our, longitude and latitude. They used a culturally Chicago, correlated thing. What do you think about kind of how they approached that jersey?
Oh, we touched on it a little bit earlier. I'm a big fan of it. I think that more cities should try to do this, like we said with New York. And I think that it's good that they didn't make it too busy, because it could have gotten the boathouse effect really quickly if they went with theater lights or a big flashy theater sign. But that clean font on the just dark black uniform with the gold lettering and the red just shadowing it just to give it a little bit of contrast is subtle enough that it doesn't scream out at you. And I think it's cool, man. What do you think of the rebrand?
I think it's good. I don't know if it was completely necessary, because to your point, I think they were on the right track. But, so it remains to be seen if they'll follow up on, this train of thought, or if they'll kind of go back to where they were. But I'm in on it. Yeah, I like it.
What do you think of Atlanta's full rebrand?
Much needed. They were messing around with that neon yellowish green for the longest time, and that weird kind of, not Aztecian, but those like patterns and textures that they'd have. They not quite.
It was like bird feathering, like a hawk.
Right. I didn't notice that.
Before that, with the navy blues was even worse.
Yeah, the Joe Johnson era.
It's so funny that you say it needed to. That's what I have in my notes. It needed to happen. The Hawks have been on a uniform odyssey since the early 2000s.
Yeah.
They just lost their way and they finally found their way back home.
And they have such a good, like, red, orange, and white. No one else has that. Kind of the Rockets kind of rock that when they go back to their old schools as well. But, you ever watch old highlights of Nic and those old Hawks teams, like, those jerseys are clean, man. And this is like a throwback jersey that I can get behind returning.
Right. They almost took the best parts of the old aesthetic and brought it into the new age, as opposed to just going fully back into it.
Yeah.
I could still go for the 90s with the big hawk on the side uniform. Give me that one, please, in the next couple of years as like a special city edition. Yeah. But it needed to happen. And we talked about the MLK uniform, one of my favorites. Yeah. I mean, really, honestly, it could have looked like anything. And if they just put MLK and nothing else on there, it's going to be a top 3 uniform.
For sure.
Because fuck yeah, MLK. Yeah, but the fact that it's super good looking, black and gold, clean, I'm all for it.
Yeah. So, and the only thing I wanted to say about Atlanta is that I'm slightly disappointed that they abandoned the peach tree angle so quickly, because those peach and black jerseys,
those were nice.
Man, with the court too, like, there's something about pastels in sports that, like, you don't see super often. You start to see more of it. But when it's done well, it's unlike any other team. It's not the classic black and gold, even though that's great. It's not red, white, and blue. It's different. And it feels like you're going to a place when you see those color schemes. It's so, unique to those places. So I'm slightly disappointed. I hope they bring those back.
I think we talked about this when they released those peach uniforms, but that particular color or a hue close to it is like outlawed in NCAA sports to be in locker rooms, because it's been proven to calm people. So certain teams would paint the visiting locker room that really calming peach pink tone. And when they bust out those uniforms, that was one of my very first thoughts is, ooh, they're going to calm their opponents. This is going to be a little psychological, warfare going on the court. And they looked so nice. Couldn't agree more. So yeah, RIP to the peach trees. Hopefully those come back soon.
Yeah.
What did you think of the Raptors rebrand?
Why?
Couldn't have said it better myself. All right.
I mean, there's the thing, right? If you're going to rebrand, like, rebrand. Mm-hmm. And to me, this is like adjacent to their current path. Like, if you had told me this was their jerseys last year, I probably couldn't have been like, no, this is different and that's different. And, it's so similar with the, they got the ovo, the kind of peak there. They got We the North on some of them. I don't know. It's fine. They don't look awful. I think the red ones look pretty cool. I like the red ones.
Yeah, they don't look bad, but they just did a huge overhaul, and then they won the title. Mm-hmm. Why are you then changing your uniforms? No, keep those. Those have become classic now. You just won the title on those. Wear those forever.
Right.
Those are the ones you go back to.
Right. These
are like, you're totally right. They're like combining the past few years worth of uniforms into like this new weird amalgamation of uniforms. And none of them really turned out great, unfortunately. And they're kind of boring.
Yeah.
And they were boring before, but they were like old school boring, like in their simplicity. Now these are just trying really hard and they're still boring.
I don't know. And like you said, they really missed the mark on their city gold and black jersey. I don't know. They didn't drop the bag. They didn't knock it out of the park. It's just kind of why is my final thought there. I don't know.
Totally agree. We had some teams that have not released uniforms yet, and we've listed them out here. Maybe some predictions or suggestions for each team. Mm-hmm. What do you think Boston's going to do?
I mean, what's the least amount of effort they can do? Oh, I saw a leaked jersey where they just literally put Boston on top of Celtics and called it a new jersey.
Hey, that's better than the CS Rise.
Oh, no, you're right. Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, the Celtics never do anything dramatic. We talked about the texturing of those Brooklyn uniforms earlier, and I'm usually opposed to texturing patterns on uniform, but I did like the parquet court pattern because that's so Boston specific.
Right.
That they had on those gray uniforms a couple years ago. But I think they should embrace their like original OG shamrock with Celtics written over it and then put the uniform number in the shamrock.
I mean, yeah, I don't know, man. As a Lakers fan, all of my Boston jerseys suggestions will probably be, a little too racy / hateful, spiteful of the Boston people. But
you're like, what will make the best chamois for my car?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Can they put like, we probably definitely might trade you on the back of their jerseys in, small lettering?
Yeah, they are not a loyal bunch there in Boston. Well, we'll see what they do. What about Cleveland?
So Cleveland, to me, I don't know about you, it's been synonymous with like completely wrong colorways lately. So like the last few years, I remember seeing Larry Nance in this like gray and blue and like kind of yellowish like jersey. I don't know if you remember those.
Land?
Yeah, the Land, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It just looks like a Nuggets jersey, like weirdly. I don't know if Cleveland has ever had a good jersey in my lifetime.
I liked the uniforms when like LeBron went back there initially. What was that, in 14? Like those super clean, they just, were red and yellow.
Yeah, those are better.
Those are better. No, they've basically used every throwback design possible in the past 10 years, plus multiple logo redesigns. They need to chill out for a little bit and like get good at like the basketball thing and then get good uniforms. But right now they've really gone too hard. It's like a kid who's had just too much sugar and he just needs to sit down for a little bit and have some water.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Their chill jerseys out, Dan Gilbert.
Also just feel kind of directionless to me. Like the Land is, like what in the vein of Motor City or Buzz City or all those, the Valley jersey, which we haven't brought up yet, that are actually pretty cool. I like those. I like those less than I did the first time I saw them. I don't know. We can get into that separately, but no one calls it the Land. We don't know it, that's what is Cleveland even known for, right? Like manufacturing? Like what do you thematically rally behind in a place like Cleveland's? Maybe they have a harder job than we're giving them credit for. I don't know. I'm just saying.
They're just waiting till 2035 when LeBron finally retires and they can have a LeBron edition uniform like the Mamba ones.
It would just be like a king or something? Like a king crown logo?
What would the LeBron uniform... That, or they would go back to that like 2003 aesthetic.
Oh, God, no. No.
But maybe those could go the full circle, like the Raptors uniforms, like where they're so
cool
ugly,
now?
they're cool again. Yeah.
See, I thought the Raptors was cool in the moment. I thought the Pistons was cool in the moment because they look dated now. But back then, when you're used to like boring Lakers and boring Knicks and boring Celtics,
That's true.
you see this Pistons, like Raptors, like Memphis or Vancouver, Atlanta. They've got like entire like fucking images on their jerseys, and you're like, oh, that's cool.
That's totally, yeah. No, you're right.
They didn't age well, but I don't know. Cleveland was never one of those to me.
But what about Houston?
I mean, they've done some, Chinese themed things over the last few years, because of their heavy kind of fan base in China. And because money, let's do another one.
Yeah, in your notes, I was cracking up when I read them yesterday. You're like, probably something Chinese because reasons.
It's true, though.
No, it's totally true. Man, I really dug the weird NASA uniforms from last year. I'm big on outer space and space travel, so even though those weren't that good looking, I hope they lean into that aesthetic. Maybe do like a space shuttle uniform edition,
right.
Honoring like the Challenger or something of that nature.
Ooh, I like that.
I liked that the 0 had the slash through it, and Westbrook wore 0, so it just, that's what you do. You take
small things.
It's about the details.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm with you there. I liked Houston stuff, and it's another one like the ones I just mentioned. Those Barkley rockets with the cheesy pinstripes and like the literal clip art rocket. Bring those back for a season.
All for it. Do it while you still have Harden, and you'll still be selling uniforms.
Oh, you hate to see it. But what about a team that we also haven't heard anything about in Indiana? I mean, I feel like what I thought was my prediction is like, I don't know, but there's probably going to be a lot of shapes.
This is true. They do like their shapes. I will say that I've enjoyed their recent run on like City Edition, like those Indy 500 car uniforms where the number was on like the left chest and it was in the circle like a racing number.
Yep.
I think it's time for the 2000s like Reggie, Jalen pinstripe throwbacks.
Pinstripes.
Yeah, it's time. We need those.
With it. I think
preferably the yellow with the navy blue.
I was just going to say those yellow ones pop in a particularly crisp way to me, but I don't know. I mean, I'm gathering we also like pinstripes when they're done well. Seems a couple of teams are starting to bring those back a little bit more. So yeah, I'm with it.
Maybe it's The Last Dance influenced me, seeing those old highlights, and I was like, man, those are just so clean.
Yeah.
I don't know. The Pacers, while their jerseys have been good, they are like a really, really cool college program uniforms, and maybe it's the Michigan colors that kind of say that to me as well, but they've been changing it up so much that they need to get back to some sort of classic aesthetic. I
think they do a pretty good job on the whole, as far as their jerseys go. They're pretty good. They're pretty good.
Totally agree.
Yeah,
thumbs up from me. They got a good logo, good colors to work with. So it's a good place to start. What about Milwaukee?
I mean, I saw like a blue, like potential leak that was like the most generic city jersey you'd ever seen. It's basically just blue and says Milwaukee.
It's blue and white, like the Greek colors.
Right. Like, I mean, if you're going to do that, then do that, right? Like, put the jersey and says Milwaukee in Greek, or, it says... make a Greek flag jersey, like
go all in.
Yeah,
whatever you can.
Do it. Yes.
All I want is more Cream City.
Phrasing.
I want Cream City forever, every year until I die.
Phrasing. Understood, though. Milwaukee's Cream City, I thought they were abominable at first, but they grew on me. I don't know. I still think they're meh, but...
It's like the land, but cool.
The Off-White, I think you can sell me on. The Off-White, I think, needs some more love. And I just didn't love their... It was still, again, kind of bland and not a whole else going on there, you know? But
yeah, more just about the name.
Right. So my next team, and I wonder if you agree with me here. This might be it. This might be the year that the Wolves finally make a wolf on a jersey look cool. Agree or disagree?
Disagree.
Fair, but elaborate.
Yeah, I guess I should be more positive, but man, the Wolves have had arguably the worst uniforms in the NBA over the past decade.
Except the Prince jerseys. Except the Prince jerseys.
See, those Prince uniforms remind me a lot of like the Los Angeles Clippers Grand Theft Auto ones, where like the seed of the idea is awesome. Like I totally see it on the whiteboard. This is a great idea. The execution of it was extremely poor. I don't think that it ended up being that popular of a uniform, but the idea of it was so cool. Have you seen a leak with a wolf on it, or are you just hoping like for an Atlanta Hawk style?
They have the pieces, right? They have, again, you're the Timberwolves, you're the Wolves. You have a wolf. Wolves are awesome.
Wolf pack.
Yes, and there's so many things, and you know, they mock up all these lame logos of a wolf howling at the moon, and you know, like it's not it, man. They're too cartoony. Then they try to make him look too aggressive. They have just missed the mark entirely, and I don't think it's that hard to just make a cool wolf jersey.
Wow, I never even considered that. Yeah, they do have like a top 5 mascot. The only uniform that I like from their past are those black Kevin Garnett uniforms, like the ones Rose went for 50 in. Was that last year or the year before?
With like the tree trim?
But those are almost like that fully around the circle cool. Like they weren't super cool when they were out, but now they're cool. But yeah, maybe a wolf on the uniform. I really don't. They can only go up from here.
Right.
I don't know what they're going to do, though. What about OKC? Another repeat offender of some of the worst uniforms in the NBA.
Oh, man. So we just got a leak before we started recording. So we do actually have a little bit of insight. But my speculation before we saw anything was that they'd somehow find a way to make their orange even brighter and to cover their entire jersey in it. That's not what happened.
No, they went for a NASCAR driver outfit aesthetic. They even got the nice big Loves patch right there. Yeah, who wears number 3?
Not anyone on the team anymore, but that's...
Well, they need to get a number 3, because that uniform will sell like hotcakes along I-35.
I mean, this kind of also falls in the gas station specials to me, if this leak is true. I don't know, man. It feels Midwestern-ish to you. I'll take your word on that.
Oh, man, if you've ever driven on I-35 from Kansas City to Dallas, like the only thing in between those two cities is Loves and Subway. Now, their uniforms have felt like a sponsored AAU team for like the past 10 years. They could potentially join the disrespectful as fuck category, and they could do like a Sonics throwback and just really stick some middle fingers out to Seattle. Like do like those red and green 90s Kemp Payton era, but have it say Thunder. Just giving the bird to the Northwest.
Seriously.
But I mean, their main problem is like they have too many colors and a dumb name. So like it's like the opposite is the Pacers. The Pacers have cool colors and a good name. It's like you're just starting from a much better place. And with the Thunder, I mean, can you imagine the person working at Nike and they're like, make a cool uniform for the Thunder, and you're sitting there like, what the fuck do I do? Draw buffalo on it?
Yeah. Well,
now, the only cool ones are those Native American teal ones, and I hope they do that. That they work with the Native American community, let them continue to design it, kind of the same way Brooklyn's reaching out to artists, but like reach out specifically to like Native American artists and let them design one a year. Yeah, because those teal ones were cool.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, like, what else are you doing? I also literally just now considered that them and the Knicks have the same color scheme, which I'm not sure that's the kind of color scheme you want to kind of rip off, though, blue and orange and white. I don't know. It doesn't, in theory it works, but blue and orange complementary, but in execution, it's just, another thing of having a mascot or a team name that is not like a physical, tangible thing that you can represent through visuals. Like they'd almost be better off if they were the Lightning, but I digress. It's tough. I don't remember a jersey I like from them other than the teal Native American one.
Yeah, I think that's legitimately the only OKC uniform I've ever liked.
Yeah.
Well, that was a lot of uniform talk, and I'm sure as the season continues, we will continue to track those. But we're going to talk a little bit here about non-player moves in the league that have happened here so far. What move do you think is going to have the biggest impact for next season specifically?
Right. And this is tough. I mean, you look at coaches, assistant coaches, GMs, ownership, right? You could think of... What if the guy in Utah decides to go all in and decides to pay the tax and, put all those pieces into the middle of the table right away?
Which owner has taken a hit during the pandemic and isn't wanting to spend for the next season?
So there's a lot to consider here, but ultimately, because of situation and because of talent and resources, I think it's Daryl Morey. And I feel... stupid at this point to admit that I've been pretty high on the Sixers long term, at least. I didn't pick them to make the finals or anything last year or the year before that, but I think that their core of young talented players, before they muddied it up with Harris and Horford, I was a huge Embiid fan, and I still think that how he can score efficiently in certain parts of the court, that Daryl will be able to maximize his efficiency and dominance. And it's not, people think that he's coming from Houston and he's going to make the Sixers play the same way and shoot threes. That's not what Daryl is to me. Daryl's reading what you're good at. Let me put you around pieces that help you be good at that. And then I'm going to teach you how to cut out the things you're bad at. So stop shooting all these fucking threes. Like, shoot threes, but shoot these threes, right? And even if you don't get Ben Simmons to shoot threes, the things that he can do around the fringes of the roster, can he turn a Josh Richardson into two role players? I think he could. I think he understands better than 99.9% of GMs how to maximize the team in front of you. And give credit to the Rockets, right? They almost beat the Warriors. They went all in trying to beat the Warriors at least, and they fell short. But
you have to respect it.
You have to. You have to respect it, and they went about it. Like, think about where they've come, right? When they had Dwight Howard, they got Chris Paul, now Russell Westbrook, and now they're starting to fall apart. When they got Dwight and he left, I was like, they're done. I don't know who else is coming. Then they magically turn it into Chris Paul, right?
Yeah.
When Chris Paul falls apart, they're done. What are they going to do? He always finds a way to pull a rabbit out of a hat. And
even before all of that, when he had Yao and T-Mac, and he built it into the Harden Rockets without tanking or losing, without missing the playoffs. He still continued to win and make the playoffs, and he retooled a team to be a different looking type of champion. It's so impressive.
Yeah. I think the only trade he ever lost in his tenure in Houston was the Russell Westbrook trade. It's the only trade I would objectively look at back and say that he didn't either get the best player or get the best value.
I completely agree, and I think that there is speculation on whether that was fully his decision.
He's claiming it is, to save face, and I understand why.
Right.
He's a part of the
that's
decision.
What you do.
Yeah, that's what you do,
absolutely.
And I respect that.
But if you look at his track record and then you look at that trade, there's a disconnect there. There's something different happening with the decision making on the Westbrook trade that was not happening before.
Absolutely.
So maybe there was more voices in the room other than him. I can't argue that. I'm a huge Morey fan. I would maybe even argue that he'll have a bigger impact over the next 5 years than next season specifically, because he doesn't have a lot of time to maneuver, and Philly's cap issues are tough right now. So my choice, I went with Tibbs, with Tom Thibodeau. Like when he took over for the Bulls, they had a 21-game win improvement, and Derrick Rose won the MVP. When he took over the Timberwolves, they were awful, and he still had a win increase, and it was only Cat's second year. And we know he's going to just exclusively play the good players 1,000 minutes. So, like, the Knicks are going to win more games. They only won 21 games last year. I see them winning probably 30 to 32 this upcoming year, just because Tibbs is going to have that team playing hard and not having shitty players on the court. I wouldn't want him coaching my team. I'm so glad that he's not the Kings coach. But I think that he's good, especially early with the team, like in year 1 and year 2.
So what do you think are like, and obviously we're recording this before the draft, before free agency, but you got Leon Rose there now, a lot more well-connected, well-respected GM than they've had in the past, 5 years. What do you think?
The past 5 years?
I mean, Phil Jackson is respected. He doesn't do a good job, but he is respected, okay?
He barely did the job.
So I was just going to ask, like, what team, theoretically, through trades, maybe it's Westbrook, maybe it's, trying to move up in the draft, they're one of the few teams with cap space in a year that you might not want it. So what are good Tibbs players? Like, what's the perfect pathway for a Tibbs revival in New York you could see?
I think it starts with Van Vliet. I think you offer him whatever number he needs to hear. Because I think that dude is the kind of dude you want in a locker room, and a Tibbs locker room at that. He's a gamer. He's unfazed. He's won a championship.
Right.
And he's like one of those guys who's like, bet on himself, overcome not being the strongest, the fastest, the tallest. He's a total Tibbs gamer type player, and I think that he could bring like some sort of like structure to the Knicks, and also, he could control the pace of games. He would have the ball a lot of the time, now that he's not playing with Kyle Lowry.
For sure.
So I think going after a free agent like that, like not the total cream of the crop or shooting too high for like Chris Paul or Westbrook, but shooting right below that and just overpay them a little bit just to bring them in the door and to start a real culture. And he's young enough too to where like even on the next contract, theoretically, you could still be contending and you might not have to pay him as much at that point, but he's still a good player.
Yeah, he's not super beating you with his athleticism. So if that falls off a little bit, and you presume he's going to get smarter and, a lot more skilled as a leader, hopefully. I like that fit. I think that's the kind of guy that you slightly overpay, but a guy who can go to the rest of the league with a straight face and say, we're a legit team again. The Knicks are a legit organization again, and we're doing things the right way. And that's they have the first step. Yeah. Yeah,
they just have to become respectable.
Exactly.
And then, move on from there.
I like that. I like Tibbs, though. No, I was just going to say, I'm less skeptical. Like, you said 32 wins, and you got to remember, that's almost 500 this season.
Right. And, I mean, that's a lot more wins for a team. That's 10 more wins.
Yeah.
But you got to imagine that's how Tibbs rolls. He likes winning games specifically. He's not much for, like, leave them out there and let them learn. He'll just pull you off and put somebody better in. So we'll see.
Well, it'll be fun to see what he can do defensively with guys like Mitchell Robinson and Ntilikina, like more defensive driven guys to kind of mold them and maybe even get them to all defense level guys.
I could definitely see that happen, especially if Van Vliet comes in there and kind of spearheads the defense. He would be, spearheading that zone for the Raptors a lot in the playoffs. And putting him at the top, and he would force, the play left or right, at least control half the court that way. Right. So, their defense should be good. Hopefully Tibbs is, like, backed off on ice and all of his defensive principles from a bygone era, because that's not going to work in 2020, 2021.
I mean, you still ice. You just don't need to be at half court screaming at dudes to ice. Like, that's the issue. It's like,
Ice!
dude,
Ice!
we know when to ice. Like,
All right, which non-player move will have the biggest impact over the next 5 seasons? What do you got here, Tom?
this was tough too, because I was trying to kind of see the future. You know, I thought of teams who might be in a position to fire their GM in the near future. I'm not going to lie. I considered putting Danny Ainge here because I think he is at a tipping point in his organization after years of being touted for having draft picks and resources and assets. And he's going to come out of this era with Kemba Walker, Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum, which is nice, but it's not Kawhi, it's not Paul George, and it's not Anthony Davis. So if they peter out and they can't get past the Eastern Conference Finals in the next 3 years, I don't think it'll happen, but I think it's worth top mentioning. So I'm going to put that off the board, get my little Celtic slander out of my system so I can talk about the guy I want to talk about in Steve Nash, because the Nets are the most recently constructed like super duper team, right? You got them and the Lakers kind of came around at the same time, but KD was hurt, so they're waiting. Now you've got all this buzz about James Harden potentially becoming into the fold. And where there's smoke, there's fire sometimes. I'm not saying he's going to be traded there, but I'm saying there's a non-zero chance. And if that happens, even if it doesn't happen, Steve Nash is my pick. But this is a guy who, hasn't coached in the league. Spent a few years with the Warriors as like a player development, player skills guy.
Right.
Obviously, no one's going to question his basketball intellect. However, there are differences in leading a team as a player, as the best player, as the floor general, and leading a team as the coach. Because you don't have the ball in your hands, Steve Nash. Kyrie Irving has the ball in his hands. And
I think Kyrie's a head coach too.
Well, yeah, that's fortunate for them because they have 1,000 head coaches, and he's a head coach, and Steve Nash is our backup point guard. Everything's great. But does that structure really work? I mean, who's the only other player you say is a coach on the floor? Like, really, like, is their head coach? It's LeBron, right? LeBron's always that player who's like, yeah, Vogel made the adjustments, but we know LeBron had a say in it or pushed him that direction. Is there any chance Steve Nash is able to make Kyrie Irving or Kevin Durant play in a way that they don't want to, but will help them win games? I'm just skeptical.
Yeah, it's tough to see it. Kyrie has kind of flamed out the past few seasons, just like when things aren't going his way, all of a sudden he gets an injury and he's just out for the rest of the year. Like he didn't go down to the bubble. He's just kind of MIA. And KD is a weird cat himself. Yeah. I mean, he, with all his Twitter stuff, and he's clearly affected by what people say and the fact that people don't really respect those rings that he won when they should. I mean, sure. I don't think that he has anything to hang his head up.
He was their best player. He joined
against
the super
LeBron
team.
James in a finals and nailed the game-winning shot basically in his eye. Nothing, there. But Steve Nash is a good dude, and I think that's going to help him. He's not only like a really talented player and a good basketball mind, but you just hear from everybody that they get along with him, and I think that he's really good with connecting with everybody. Whether it be the 12th man or Amari, who we know is kind of crazy there for a certain period of time. I think that he's really good with people, and that's going to help him. But the actual basketball aspect, I'm very interested to watch it, because the second things start breaking down, Kyrie and KD are going to start ISOing. And they're going to shoot tough contested shots and play Kobe ball, and they're not Kobe. Yeah. So I don't think that that's going to work out too well for them. And Brooklyn needs... Go ahead.
No, that's why it's the future to me, right? We talked about the present with Morey and with Tibbs, but to the future for me is the Nets are legitimately and properly a top 5 title contender right now, and we haven't ever seen them play a game together. This is with or without Harden, right? And Harden just kind of like exacerbates all of these concerns, because if you have those 3 guys, then you are the favorite, like straight up, like you are the favorite. Yeah. And expectations could... if you don't live up to that after year one, okay, maybe, you know, we'll run it back. We'll get a little bit better role players. But if after year 2, 3, you're not regularly in the finals and winning at least 2 to 3 games in the finals minimum, you know, that's the tipping point for a team like that where they could miss their window. And I'm not saying it's Steve Nash's fault, but he is going to have the most kind of scapegoatism, if you will.
That's a great point.
If they don't.
I totally agree. If Harden does go there, they're going to be a great defensive team with Durant and Harden on the court. They can both switch onto anybody. Like, Durant's great at protecting the rim, and I think Harden is a, you know, concrete block when it comes to people trying to move him off a spot. I think that he's really, really good when he wants to be. I think defensively in the playoffs that they could lock people down with having their best offensive player still on the court.
I mean, Harden can guard up in the post, but the issue for him and Kyrie is kind of perimeter D.
Yeah, an off-ball defense.
Right. So that's.
But maybe you work your matchups that way. You put Harden on a bigger guy and
but
let
they're going to score
play.
130 points a game, so who cares, right? Like,
great point. Yeah, what am I talking about defense with? Yeah.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong there. Like, obviously, those guys aren't just 30-point a game scorers. You also have incredible passing from 3 different positions.
Mm-hmm. And you're basically always having at least one of them on the court, and they're all 3 good with the ball in their hands. Yeah, that'd be a dangerous team. But it has not happened yet. We can talk about it here in a couple weeks. We'll see if there's been some player movement.
What about you, though?
My pick here for the next 5 years, it's a homer pick, but I'm going with Monty McNair.
Okay.
The Kings, we already have one piece, Fox, and like we're in a good position to build. We don't have a lot of bad contracts. We don't have, you know, really a good chance at winning as long as Luke Walton's our coach. So we're going to be in, you know, the lottery for the next couple of years. But basically this is like wins above replacement. This is a war statistic. You go from having the guy who like passed on Luka to like
it's tough.
A young, smart, I have to live with it every day. The only reason I don't cry every night is because I have Mahomes in my life.
That's fair.
So I feel, like the scales evened out there, right? But now we have like a smart, young, analytics-driven GM for the very first time. And I think that Vivek is genuinely a good owner, like, because he, like, cares. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I think he's had his new owner spending and controlling things and now is chilled out as an NBA owner. They all have to go through it. We're Ballmer's in the middle of it hardcore right now.
Over enthusiasm, right? Too much enthusiasm. Like Jerry Jones level of enthusiasm.
Yeah, I guess that never wore off for Jerry Jones.
No.
But, and I don't really have a lot to say other than that. I'm really excited for the first time in a long time as a Kings fan. Having McNair running the show, and like I said, we just got to get Walton out of there, but keep him around this year so we can lose some games.
So where do you land on the Buddy Bogdanovich conundrum that y'all have this summer?
I want Bogdanovich.
Yeah.
10 out of 10 times over Buddy, for sure.
So do you think, and we just saw a couple kind of like trades happen, but do you think that Buddy is kind of being shopped or being kind of, because he has a pretty big contract kind of kicking in this year.
He does, but I think that also allows them to either get 2 role players or a good player back with that contract. And I mean, him not answering the calls of Walton, if a dude doesn't want to be there, that's just not my kind of dude. That's not a professional that I want in my locker room, period.
Sure.
Even if you don't want to be there, don't send out the Eric Bledsoe, I don't want to be here tweet. Just like you're getting millions of dollars, you're a professional, go to work, and then assess your situation when you can, or keep it in-house. You know what I mean? So that stuff really bothers me. And I haven't seen a package floated out there that I really like, so I don't have like a trade that I could point to specifically.
Right.
You know, if the Clips want to trade Paul George for Buddy, I would do that. You know, or something like that, like a disgruntled number 2 star to a team that just wants another space and, you know, pace player.
See, I don't know. I struggle with stuff like this because, you know, my buddy Tim on the Lakers Exceptionalism podcast, he always has a saying of whenever you have a trade idea, take it to that team's fan base, and you know whether or not you have anything worthwhile. And, basically saying that fans, all of us overvalue players on your own team. So what I was thinking was, reportedly, as of this recording, the Lakers just traded for Dennis Schroeder. Theoretically, and I think this is a reasonable package based on salary and expectations. A trade that works that a lot of Lakers Twitter had been floating was Buddy for Kuz, Green, and a first.
Like Danny Green?
Yeah.
So he wouldn't be being traded for Schroeder?
Right. This is all hypothetical, like before the Schroeder trade. This was being talked about by a lot of who I consider smart Lakers people as like a killer deal they would do in a heartbeat.
I would rather have Caruso than Kuz.
Yeah, it's not happening.
Yeah, and that's fair.
I agree.
But I don't want Kuz on
Yeah.
my basketball team. Yeah,
that's totally.
I don't think that he's making other players better. He's legitimately going to go out and shoot his shots, and that's it. He's a good defender too, but he's not a culture guy. He's who you bring in if you're already a contender. Like if the Nets grabbed Kuz or something like that instead of Harden to bring him off the bench, I could see that happening.
He's also not young. He's already 25. He's so
right.
Like 25 is, yes, young, but it's not like you're getting he's just coming off his rookie scale contract, and you're not really getting that age benefit there either as far as like a blue chip young piece. But I just wonder if, I think Buddy's slightly overpaid. I think contending teams are willing to deal for him and be okay with that based on whether or not the Kings are willing to accept expiring money and draft compensation instead of like an actual like prime piece, if that makes sense.
Right. Which I would be okay with as long as like there was draft assets or something involved to accompany those expiring deals. I don't want to just be trading him to get out of the deal.
So what do you think, and then just bringing it back to Monty, I guess, because I don't know too much about him. I know he was under Morey in Houston. He's more of an analytical guy. Like, what'll be the approach then, I guess, as far as like how he can impact team construction? Is it try to get the best guys around Fox and really just bringing, the culture around him?
I hope so. As a Kings fan, that is what I want. I think Fox is the kind of guy you want to build your franchise around, kind of similar to Van Vliet. I just like the way he conducts himself on and off the court, and you got to have like that guy to look to in the pressure situations, and even in the off the court situations, like with social justice and the voting stuff. You want a player who spearheads that stuff as like the dude for your franchise, right? You just want a leader. And I think that's what Fox is, and he's incredibly talented, and he's also shown a propensity to get better each offseason. Like he's going to be good next year. We should probably also fill in the listeners on our bet of De'Aaron Fox or Lonzo Ball being either all defense, all-star, all NBA first. And we made this like 2 seasons ago.
At least.
Thinking that it would be taken care of like that year. And here we are years later still with that bet out there. Just
for context, so people don't, think I'm crazy. My end of the deal was like I'm banking on Lonzo making an all defensive second team, basically. That is my like one pathway, and also to be fair, this was much earlier than when De'Aaron Fox made his giant leap after his rookie season. So I think we made this after their first seasons. And for context, as far as I'm not saying De'Aaron Fox is worse than Lonzo Ball, which is what it sounds like as far as me taking that bet. Fox has proven himself to be far more consistent, far more impactful player than Lonzo, who I've been disappointed in, but I still believe in some of the tenets of his game.
Yeah, you always stood up for his defense, and I can't argue there. It's a smart bet on your part. Very savvy, because I'm banking on, well, Fox is going to be the only good King for the next decade. So if the Kings are going to get somebody in the All-Star game, it's going to be him.
But then I was like, oh, it's the West, though. Like, this is my thought process of the bet. Like, is he going to beat Westbrook, Paul, Dame, right? Like, Harden, Curry. There's a log jam of all-stars at the guard position in the West. So good luck, my friend. Steak dinner on the line. I'm excited.
Yeah, not going so well so far. All right. let's quickly here touch on. We wanted to talk about like AD, Joker, and Embiid's impact on player personnel before the free agency gets going here. So I'll let you kind of take it, and then I'll give you, a rebuttal and my thoughts on it.
Sure, yeah. No, and we kind of talked about this a little bit on our podcast, but I just thought after watching these playoffs, right, and I'm mainly pointing out Anthony Davis and Nikola Jokic as entirely physical matchup issues. Guys that, it's hard to guard Damian Lillard, but it's not as hard when there's a guy that's 6'4" on your team or 6'6" who can actually physically match up with him. So after watching the playoffs and the way that Jokic dominated from that center position, and both with physicality and with passing, he's so versatile. AD's just the same, right? He can hit a game-winning three on you, but then he can also turn his back in the post and hit an alley-oop from Rondo. So some of these issues are simply like, okay, we have to front Anthony Davis because we have no one in the world who can actually match up with him if he tries to post us up. So, we're going to make it hard for you to get the ball to him. All this, you look at Jokic, same thing. The way his physicality dominated Harrell, who's a good player, but Montrezl Harrell cannot match up with Nikola Jokic. So, and I think again to Embiid and how high I still am on him. And now with Morey going there, there are these guys in the league who we haven't had for some time. These big, physical, skilled, talented guys. And I don't put Cat in this category yet because physically he's not as dominating, although he could eventually get there.
Maybe.
Based on his skill set alone, right? And
sure,
maybe get a little bigger. But Embiid, Jokic, and AD, these are huge, giant humans who I just thought if you might see teams shying away from a full roster of small ball guys and going the Shaq route, when in 2000s, every team had 2 to 3 guys that were just random giant white dudes off the bench who had 6 fouls a game. But let me just say, none of these players are Shaq, right? None of them are as physically dominating. It's not the same.
Correct.
It's not the same.
Check yourself, kids.
I'm sad. I know what Shaq looked like. You know what I mean? I was there. But when you see the Warriors trying to put together a team and play Draymond Green at the 5 and have that success of stretching and spacing the floor, they got no answer for Anthony Davis. And it's not Draymond Green, I'll tell you that. So is a team like the Warriors, is a team like, the Rockets going to be willing to get bigger and sign Alex Len and, Joakim Noah and Dwight Howard just to match up with some of the size that the Lakers have. Now, part of this depends on whether or not the Lakers can return their size in Dwight, maybe Boogie, because that was AD. That was their philosophy, it seemed like, at the end of last season was, all right, the Warriors are out, Clay is hurt, they're going to have a rough start to the year. The league's wide open. All these teams are trying to be Golden State, but they can't. We're not even going to try. We're so far away, personnel-wise, from even trying. Let's build a more classic 2007 championship-style team. And I just wonder if that is going to force other teams, based on them, Denver, the Lakers, the Sixers, I would all consider to be top 6 to 8 title contenders in the league. So if half of the top title contenders in the league have a physical dominating matchup problem who you cannot solve without a giant human on your 13th roster spot.
Right.
And maybe it's a stopgap. Maybe it's fighting a losing battle. But I just wonder if that resurgence of big, skilled, talented guys will kind of change the way teams approach their roster construction.
No, I think it's a great thought. And it is obviously going to affect the way that teams build for the next couple of years, with the Lakers being so dominant, because LeBron is basically a big man too.
Yes.
And he's a big man with all the guard skills. And I think that's what makes AD so dangerous. This young crop of big men is like if you had Dirk when he was at his mental pinnacle, but with like a 25-year-old's athletic body. Because like Dirk was so good even at like 32, 33 because he was 7 feet tall and he could shoot a 3-pointer.
Right.
If you just are if you have that in your bag, you're a pretty unstoppable player. Then yeah, you throw in AD's athleticism, it's almost unstoppable. But first, I'm planting my flag in the I don't believe in Embiid hill.
Ooh.
You heard it here. He has shown himself to not be mentally tough enough to like play a full NBA season like that, or to play to where you could win a championship.
Right.
His mind just can't make it that far. It never has, and I don't think it will. I think he's just too free-spirited, and I love that about him. He's so good for our game, but he is not a killer. He just isn't. He gets like little kid upset that it's his like closest to killer mentality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when someone kind of pulls on his jersey, then he does all these antics and swings around and he's like, oh, look how tough I am. And it's like, no, you know what's tough is like Kobe Bryant not flinching when Barnes throws the ball like an inch away from his face.
So
that's like what toughness is on the basketball court. It's like Kawhi Leonard just looking at you deadpanned after he just took your cookies and dunked it. And you're just like, you're terrified at that point. With Embiid, you can get in his head with Valanciunas. You just need like one dude in there to just get in his head, and you got him for the game every time. But with AD, he's got LeBron on his side, who's like maybe the smartest basketball player we've ever seen. So like, you're not going to get to AD in that way. So like, my best strategy, and I wrote it down here, is like you need like a team of Boris Diaws. And that sounds a little bit wild, but like that dude is a little Harden-like, but almost like better on the perimeter than Harden was, and taller. I remember him being so effective against LeBron James drives when LeBron was at his physical peak. And I think you need like wide, strong players. You know, maybe if Ayton keeps taking PEDs, he'll be there. But you're not going to block AD's shot. He's 7 feet tall and he shoots it from above his head.
Yeah.
That you can be Kristaps Porzingis and you're not touching that. So you might as well have some girth, and if they try to dig into you, you don't give up that space. Because nobody's shooting a hook shot either.
Right.
So you don't have to worry about that as a defender. And then you're right, it's team defense. It's not letting the ball get to them.
Right.
And you got to design specific defenses for them, kind of in the same way you had to for the Warriors for a couple years with Curry, where it's like, no, you don't help off ball, not with him.
Yeah, we're blitzing every pick and roll. We're, not giving him any space to even get a chance to get this up.
Yeah. But yeah, people like Boris Diaw or Shane Battier, a little bit undersized, but just strong and smart. Because you're not going to beat him with big guys.
The tricky thing, though, is that it's really hard. And I think this same player applies to guys who you want to defend Kawhi and Paul George and, the other really high-end wings in the league. That same people apply to LeBron, right? The guys that you saw guard them in the playoffs are like Jeremy Grant. He's too small, slender.
He is. But if he bulked up, he could be like one of those guys I'm talking about.
For sure.
I really like Jeremy Grant.
Yeah,
honestly.
no, me too. And he's going to get paid this summer, and properly so.
Yeah, he is. If I were the Knicks,
yeah,
he's another guy.
I could see
Bring
it.
him in.
Yeah. But it's like the size and speed, it's so hard to find. That's why it makes those guys so unique. LeBron, Paul George, Kawhi, the skill combined with the size, combined with the intelligence, right? It's and I mean, but how do you defend Nikola Jokic if you're giving up 50 pounds?
You don't.
Right.
You basically, with Jokic, like your best chance is almost to play mind games with him, is to like leave him more open than he should be, because he is pass first. He wants you to bite on his pump fake, bite on his drive so he can dish it. So if you at least make him think about taking the shot before he takes the shot because he's a little extra open, or you sunk down a little bit more than he thought, I think that's almost your best chance. It's just like tricking him into a bad shot selection. But again, you're not getting that with AD because he's got Braun. Braun's just not going to let that fly.
That's true. But
he's too smart for it.
To me, in what some of the Lakers' success with Jokic was Dwight, right? And Dwight really did get under his skin, not only with being handsy and maybe fouling and all these dirty things, if you want to say that's fair, but he also is just big and has giant shoulders and is knocking Jokic out of the way and playing physical. So Jokic is a big guy who doesn't really play physically. So you can assert a will as a slightly smaller guy if you are naturally physical. And that's a good point. The Clippers were missing was kind of, Harrell wasn't as physical as he needed because he's too small. He's undersized.
And Harrell, his, odyssey to the bubble there, and with the passing of his grandmother and him going in and out, and I forgive him. That's not the Harrell that we had seen all season.
Sure. Yeah, no,
he was not
totally
in game
fair.
shape, and he was just not sharp overall. And you could tell he got into his own head once he started missing some bunnies. So I hate to just point to that one, but yeah, I mean, Jokic ate his breakfast. It was
over and over
bad.
again. And over and over, and Doc couldn't adjust and get Zubac in there a little bit more. But even Zubac isn't a perfect answer either. So I just wonder if these guys on the fringes of your roster, like I mentioned, like Joakim Noah is going to be able to go in there and give Jokic at least a little bit of an issue. Now he's going to get demolished in those pick and rolls probably. But if you need, in the regular season, 10 minutes of post defense from a guy in game 32 against AD, Embiid, Jokic, like you need a body. It's literally something you can't teach.
Correct. Yeah, and maybe that's like when you run your 10 minutes of zone. You just put the big body in the middle, and you're like, hey, you got 6 fouls here.
Yeah.
Be physical. Make sure they remember that you were in the game, No, I think those are good points, and go ahead.
No, it's just important. We all know how the league's transferred towards small ball, and when something works, you see teams copy it. So
I think that small ball is blown out of proportion. I think the nomenclature that should be used is skill ball. The Warriors weren't playing Draymond Green because he was short. They're playing him because he could defend the other team's centers well enough, and he was so effective on the offensive end. AD does all that, but he's in a 7-footer's body.
Right.
So if it would be small ball if AD was shorter. But since he's tall, it just becomes skill ball.
But at a certain level, and I agree with you, skill ball is much more accurate as far as calling these guys just big, because that's not fair. They're more than that. And that's why, to me, it's worth at least consideration. Every team at one point had tried to get a guy who could chase Steph Curry around screens. If you were a team worth contending.
I thought you were going to go for every team in the 90s had a big man for Shaq, and I was like, keep getting them checks, Gray Ghoster tag.
I mean, yeah, dude, that too. But that's where my thought process around this becomes is if you see this rise, and all these guys are young too. All these guys are in their prime or approaching their prime. So when guys like Harden and Curry and maybe Irving are starting to age a little bit, and those perimeter guys maybe won't be as, fire shooters as impactful as they were before, that there's a natural kind of swing the other way to, now some of these big guys have been shooting threes since they were 11. It's not just he added it over the summer game. It's like a part of his core fundamental skill set,
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And, I mean, we're seeing some of these kids coming in the draft who are big and very skilled. Actually kind of leads us nicely in here. Give me one player that you like in the draft before I let you go here.
So along those lines, I like me some Alexei Pokusevsky, and I do understand the concerns around him. I think KOC at the Ringer has him at 12th on his draft board, so he's a lottery pick, right?
Definitely.
But if you're not familiar, he's a 7-footer from Serbia, almost in the Kristaps Porzingis body type mold. He's not as tall, but he is very lanky, like teenage boy lanky.
Very, very lanky. Kind of looks like Porzingis a little bit, like when he was coming into the draft. He's definitely like the upper left or upper right target on the skee ball.
Right.
like you go for it, and if
Right.
you nail it and you get all the points, but if you miss it, it's going straight to the bottom.
To 50 or 0, right?
Yeah, there's no consolation prize.
So I just along the lines of what we just mentioned, to me, he might actually profile as like a 7-foot wing. If he doesn't ever get the physical like girth to bang and get rebounds and defend the rim, which, I don't really think he will, but he has this ball handling passing ability from the wing position that with his size, if he can get a decent first step, if he can finish at the rim through strength, I'm less skeptical, but he's a great passer. He could, be like an Andre Kirilenko-ish kind of guy to me, but less physically dominant, defensively.
Sure. Yeah, no, I like it, and he's a total gamer.
Yeah.
He's got some attitude, and I always dig that. I like a little bit of attitude. You saw that with Tyler Hero, like even in his high school clips, like he would talk shit, and you're like, okay, this kid's got something.
Yeah.
The bet on yourself, guys. I'm into those kind of guys. My guy, I don't follow this stuff very closely.
Same.
Full disclosure. Yeah. We just want to kind of stick a flag in the ground for somebody here. I'm going with Killian Hayes. KOC does have him number 1 on his board. He reminds me of Mike Conley. I can't help the left-hand comparison. But I think he could be like a 6th man, or an 8th man on a championship team in the next couple years. But if he, if everything breaks right for him, he could be a couple-time All-Star, I think. I think he could lead a team in scoring and assists. He's just not very athletic, so hopefully his skills can make up for that. Plus, he has a great name, so I hope we get to say his name for the next decade.
I like that. No, I like Killian Hayes. I think what you see when he has the ball in his hands is this poise. I think it's the same thing for Mike Conley, is that they're not athletically going to beat guys to their spot and win, no matter what. They're going to use their brain and their understanding of angles to beat you. So I think he can... his worry for me is a little bit his shot. If he can keep that up and consistently, become a 35% 3-point shooter.
Somebody you at least have to respect.
Yeah.
You at least have to go over the pick every now and again.
Yeah,
he's a good free throw shooter, and the scouts always say that that's a really good indicator.
Those are, correlated stats for sure.
And he has good touch, like around the rim, kind of in a Mike Conley type of way. And it took Conley a couple years to get that range into his game, but eventually he did. Sure. And now, of course he missed the 3 to move on the playoffs this year, but overall Conley's a much improved shooter.
I like that call though. Killian Hayes. So is there like a particular spot you'd want him to go? Like whether fit or, where he could become the best version of himself?
That's a great question. I try not to worry about that stuff too much because then I get really attached to ideas before. But as we've been talking about trying to revive the Knicks, why not give them Killian Hayes, especially if they get Van Vliet?
Come off the bench
so he can back. He can back up Van Vliet, and I think that could be a really good core of guards that they could have up there really quickly.
Interesting.
But any of those middle late lottery teams, I could see him going and being successful. I mean, if the Bulls want to get rid of some of their guards, he's better than most of them. So package a couple of those in some sort of trade, get some future assets, and pick up Killian Hayes. I would do that if I were them.
I don't know what the Bulls are doing, man, because I keep hearing reports that they're going to trade Wendell Carter, and I love Wendell Carter. And I
keep forgetting Billy Donovan's their coach.
Dude, it's wild. I'm not really high on Zach LaVine personally, but I think he can help you score points to maybe get an 8 seed if you have a decent defense. And so, but they're still trying to figure out what they have in Markkanen and Carter, and I just have no idea roster construction wise, like which direction they're willing to go. Because obviously they have a new GM now. So yeah, they're a big question mark for me in the draft too, as far as like a swinging point of what happens. Yeah,
totally agree. Well, we got the draft here in a couple days, so I'll be interested to see what happens there. And we're going to bring you back on. I don't think you're coming on next week, but you're coming on 2 weeks from now. And so we can talk about the draft, free agency, other movement. Maybe we can get some more uniform talk into. We'll see what's released. But
that's right.
Dude, I want to thank you for coming on. Where can the listeners find all of your work? You do so many things, so list it all.
Thanks for having me, man. No, it's we have such good conversations. I was really excited to put this on a pod, and hopefully some of our, just friendship and chemistry come through for y'all. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Creative Destroyer. I'm a co-host of the Lakers Exceptionalism pod with Tim, aka Cranjus McBasketball, who is one of I called him the other week the Steve Kornacki of Lakers Twitter. If that's an analog that makes
what an honor.
any sense to you, come check out the pod. He's a very smart guy around data, creating his own analytics. He's been working with some teams and agents to kind of provide background and leverage for players, basically, to go to their agents and say, this is what he's worth. This is, really smart guy. So I just play the layman, asking him questions and trying to frame his data and analysis in an interesting way. And it's Laker centric, but we try to be objective and talk about all the rest of we talked about Morey for about 15 minutes when it happened. So check that out. The Lakers Exceptionalism pod on Apple. But
any short films or anything?
So we just, I'm working on getting my director to do color on our recent short film. For Jasmine Street Films. We did one for the 48 Hour Film Project. So follow me on Twitter. I'll be tweeting that link out probably in the next couple weeks. And yeah, that's a whole other angle, Nick, is we got to talk films eventually here. We got basketball, we got films, we got music. There's a lot of overlap here for us to go over.
Yeah, just you wait, listeners. This is the most normal pod you'll ever get from Tom and I.
It's going to get weird. And we're going to try and have you on the pod soon on Lakers Exceptionalism we want to get back to our fun segment roots, which we've kind of strayed away. We've gotten a little more serious and dry lately. So I want to bring you on for some spice.
Happy to bring the silliness. Dude, thanks again for coming on, and we'll talk to you here in a couple weeks.
Thanks, y'all.
This episode is brought to you by CBD Brands Direct. CBD Brands Direct is an online retailer for a wide variety of CBD brands and products. They are your one-stop shop for everything CBD, from topicals to edibles to ingestibles. They've got you covered. Ignite makes broad-spectrum gummies that are precisely dosed and delicious. The gummies contain 20 milligrams of broad-spectrum CBD each and are vegan and gluten-free. The gummies come in a variety of flavors, including lemon, cherry, and orange, and can be ordered in packs of 2 or 10, depending on your needs. Ignite products are thoroughly tested and are made from hemp-derived CBD extract. All products from CBD Brands Direct ship to the continental United States. You must be 18 or older to order. Be sure to check your specific state's CBD regulations. Visit cbdbrandsdirect.com, that's cbdbrandsdirect.com to order, and use the offer code Begonia FM, all one word, at checkout to get 20% off your order. Make sure to use that code to let them know you came from us. Thanks to CBD Brands Direct for sponsoring this episode and all of Begonia FM. Okay, welcome back. We're going to do Nick's picks here. What I'm going to do is $10 bets, probably 3 games per week to start out with. And I'm going to do NFL focus for the first couple weeks here. And as the NBA and other leagues get going, I'll start to sprinkle in some picks from other sports as well. The first game that I'm picking here is Packers at Colts. The Packers are getting 1.5 points, but I'm going to go with the Packers money line, which is plus 105. So I'm putting $10 on the Packers to win at the Colts. My second pick is the Chiefs at Raiders game. The Chiefs are giving 7 points. And so I'm going to take the Raiders with the 7 points, who are minus 115 with the spread. So $10 there on the Raiders. And for my third pick, I'm doing a 3-team parlay. I'm doing the Seahawks to win at home versus the Cardinals. I know they've lost 3 of their last 4, and the Cardinals are coming off the Hail Murray play. I just expect the Seahawks to be playing a kitchen sink style of game in this one. And it's a big divisional game, and the Seahawks have a lot of easy matchups after this one, so they really need to win. With the Pittsburgh On the road at Jacksonville, I'm going with the Steelers to win for the money line on the parlay, and then I'm going with the Miami Dolphins to win on the road in Denver. So if you parlay those 3 money lines together, it gets you to a plus 209. So I'm putting $10 there. So first pick is Packers at Colts. I'm going with the Packers on the money line. Second pick, I'm taking the Raiders with the 7 points. And the third pick, a 3-team parlay with the Seahawks, Steelers, and Dolphins all to win. And we'll follow up next week and see how I did. And I'll do some picks then as well. But that is it for this week. If you have any draft or free agency predictions, hot takes, trade proposals, or if you just want to say hi, send an email to hello@begonia.fm or tweet at me at Nic Jehle. Thanks again to Tom Z for joining me, and thanks to CBD Brands Direct for sponsoring this episode. I will be back next week.